Morning everyone, I'm Ankit. You're watching the daily newspaper analysis by StudyIQ IS English channel, where we take up important news and articles from the Indian Express newspaper and provide you with detailed analysis. In addition to our detailed analysis, we also provide you with practice MCQs. We provide you with daily answer writing practice so as to help you comprehensively in your exams preparation. Now I can see many people in the morning. Good morning Kalpana, good morning Augustine, good morning Lo-Fi Rhythms, good morning Siddharam. So nice to see you all in the morning. Now as you can see from the screens behind me, the articles that I will be covering today are total 7, and these include majorly from the GS paper 3 syllabus, because as you can see there are many news articles today, particularly the ones on second and sixth sequence. These are related to some kind of a tragedy that has happened in India or abroad. Also, there are 2 articles regarding economy syllabus. First is a gold counting error, which actually is quite a funny incident, and you will understand this. Also, there is another article called Disagree and Agree Debate, where the people who are debating, that is Harish Damodaran and Ashok Gulati, they highlight that the price deficiency payment system can be beneficial or cannot be beneficial for India's farmers. So these 2 articles are primarily related to economy section. So is the centre's decision to link Farmers ID with PM-Kisan Yojana. So we'll understand first of all what is the benefit of linking Farmers ID with that of PM-Kisan Yojana, in addition to understanding the various features of these 2 schemes respectively. Also important from our science and tech point of view is Genome India project, which is a project to identify the genetic traits of Indian population and how can it benefit India as far as science and technology research is concerned, which we'll try to understand in quite a great detail. Also, there is an article important from GS1 society perspective, as this article highlights that the Meta, which is a parent company of Facebook, WhatsApp and Instagram, it has decided to do away with the fact-checking unit that it has created and rather move away to a more decentralized and a community participatory fact-checking process called community notes. So we'll try to understand all of these important articles from our today's newspaper perspective. And as usual, the notes for this session will be available immediately after the class ends on my Telegram channel ATS Live. You can search for the Telegram channel using the name ATS Live, or if you're not able to do that, please make sure to scan this QR code, as it will straight away take you to my Telegram channel. Also, I've been increasing my online participation, particularly by posting reels on Instagram, as these reels are important from our UPSC's perspective, and this is my Instagram ID. You can decide to follow me on Instagram as well. Now, let us move away to our discussion primarily by starting away with the practice question which I had given you yesterday. Consider the following statements regarding polar vortex. Now, polar vortex is a large area of low pressure and cold air surrounding both of Earth's poles, that is Arctic Circle as well as Antarctica. So yes, the first statement is correct, as it is quite correct. Second statement, a strengthening of polar vortex can lead to extreme cold weather events in the mid latitudes. Now, what do I mean by mid latitudes? Particularly area between 30 to 60 degrees of latitude. Now, this is the mid latitudes, and in this area countries such as US are there. So, does strengthening of polar vortex leads to severe cold conditions in US? The answer is no. Why? Because it is weakening of polar vortex which pushes the air which is located in northern pole down south, especially in the mid latitudes. Hence, it should have been weakening of the polar vortex and not strengthening. The polar vortex remains constant throughout the year and does not vary with seasons. The answer also is incorrect here, because it is varying in nature and it strengthens quite hugely in the months of winter because of development of low pressure region, and this cold air, it intensifies over the polar region during the process of winter. Hence, it is not constant, rather varies and becomes strong in winter seasons and weak during summer seasons. So third statement is correct. Now only first is correct and we have to identify which are incorrect. That is why 2 and 3, option B here is your right answer to this practice question. Now let us move to the practice question of mains answer writing perspective, which we'll be dealing with today before the session ends. And this question is on Genome India project and what are the objectives of this project, and we also have to discuss the significance of this project, particularly with focus on advancing medical research, healthcare and scientific innovation in India. And you have to write this question in 250 words, so we'll try to write and attempt this question after the discussion of this article before the session ends. Understood? Now let us start today with a discussion on the first article of the day, and by reading this article in the morning I was laughing myself. Why? Because it highlights that government, it made an error in counting the data for gold imports in India, and accordingly as it identified the error, it also rectified its error by reducing the amount of gold import that India did in the months of November. Now this article appeared in the business section on page 17 and hence also it is important from economy point of view. That is why I have mentioned here that it belongs to GS paper 3 syllabus. But such data and facts which appear in news are primarily important not from mains perspective but from prelims perspective, because gold is an important commodity. It is used by India as a part of its forex reserve. It is used by people like you and I to invest our wealth or even to buy jewelries. So this is why gold remains important not just from UPSC but also from Indian economic perspective. And questions we have seen are or have been appearing on this topic. That is why we are reading this article and we're covering this article on the first sequence. Now, as you will go into detail, it highlights that the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, which is responsible for updating and keeping the data of imports and exports from the country, it has revised the amount of gold import figures, especially related to the month of November. Earlier, the Ministry of Commerce highlighted that India in November imported 180 tons of gold, and in perspective, this is 3 times the India's average per month of gold imports. So this was a huge number, and accordingly to many news articles, it was probably due to an error committed by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Now, Ministry of Commerce and Industry took cognizance of the articles which appeared in news and went through the data again, and it realized that it has made some errors in the counting of gold imports, and now it has lowered the amount of gold imports which was previously almost $10 billion by $5 billion, and therefore today the gold imports for last month amounts to $9.9 billion, which is down from $14.8 billion. Now this reduction in gold imports, it has also narrowed India's overall goods trade deficit. Now why does India's goods trade deficit happen? Because India generally imports more than it exports, and this results into what is called as a trade deficit. Now this trade deficit was quite huge because of increase in gold imports, that it was $38 billion in November itself. However, after reduction of $5 billion in worth of gold import, it has now become $33 billion. Now let us try to understand first of all why this error actually happened by the Commerce Ministry in general. Now the article, it stated that earlier many units which are located in the special economic zones of our country, they were relying on the portal of NSDL to highlight what kind of golds they are importing. But recently, when they complained to the government that they had to pay registration tax on the data that they used to put on NSDL, the government moved or told them not to register with NSDL but rather register themselves on IceGate. But as a consequence of their registration and putting their data on IceGate, what happened was actually misclassification of gold movements happened. That is, gold when imported into India and sent into SEZ was counted, and also when this gold moved out of SEZ, it was counted. So technically the movement of gold was counted twice, and as a result we saw that the amount of gold imports in India, it became quite huge in the month of November. So this was the reason why primarily that the government enabled the units in SEZ to register their gold imports on IceGate portal, and this is the primary reason for miscounting as highlighted by today's article. Now, let us try to understand what is this IceGate portal. This IceGate portal is a centralized portal which provides a range of services related to Indian customs and trading community. As the members of trading community, they are required to file the data with the government, and for that IceGate is a centralized portal which will enable filing of various data. This includes services such as filing of bills of entry and shipping bills. Also, the traders can make online payments on this portal and will also be able to track their documents, particularly with the filings that they have made with the customs department. Understood? So, this is what IceGate is all about. Now, the bigger question of this article is why Indians in general are in love with gold. Why India imports gold so much every year? The answer is India is world's second largest consumer of gold, and the demand of gold in India cannot be met from the domestic sources, and as a result we have seen that India is a net importer of gold, and the countries from which India imports gold include many African nations, South American nation of Peru, as well as European nation of Switzerland and a Middle Eastern country of United Arab Emirates. Now, India traditionally imports gold, but there were many factors which increased India's gold in last few months. First factor is Indian government decided to reduce the amount of import duties that it levied on gold imports, and this was done in the union budget, which this year was passed in July. So, in this union budget, the government, it reduced the import duties that it charged on imports of gold from earlier it was 15%, now it went down to 6%. So, it became cheaper for people to import gold in India, and it increased the demands for imports of Indian gold. Now, generally gold in India is utilized as an asset class that people, they invest their money in gold thinking that whenever the prices of gold increase in future, they will sell off their gold investment, leading to huge capital gains for them. Also, the demand for gold in recent times have increased. Why has this happened? Because whenever there is a crisis situation happening across the globe, the people, they try to look forward to safer investment, and gold is one of the safest investment. That is, the demand for gold is there in perpetuity. So, as we understand, there are many wars happening currently, wars in Russia, Ukraine, wars in Middle Eastern region between Iran, its proxies and Israel, and because of all these factors, the prices of gold and demand of gold has increased. That is why people are now thinking, because by investing in gold, they are getting as much as 30% return, which is more than returns on traditional investments like foreign, like fixed deposits or stock market deposits. That is why people are now investing more in gold because of the higher returns in gold. And this is why the demand for gold in India and across the world is increasing, and so is Indians are importing more gold. Now, there are another factors as well. Traditionally, in the months of November to December, India witnesses what is called as a wedding season. That is, in these months, people prefer to get their sons and daughters wedded, and for that purpose, they require large amount of gold jewelry. And traditionally, in this months also, we have seen the demand for gold increases manifold. And that is why, in addition to reduction in import duties for gold, due to festive season, we have seen demands for gold increase, and that is why gold imports registered an year-on-year growth in November by 186.2%. That is close to twice the demand of usual times. Now, this also highlights that because of reduction in duties or import duties on gold, there has been a substantial shift in imports of gold from grey market to official channels, which has been captured by more data, and hence you can see India is importing more gold in theory. Now, the imports of gold is not enough. India is also increasing its exports of gold jewelry to other markets, which has touched the $12 billion mark in 2025 itself, and that is why to manufacture gold jewelry, we are importing more gold. So, these are the slew of reasons, particularly increase in demand for gold across the world, reduction in import duty of gold imports in India and the festive season of November and December, which has led to increase in gold imports. So that is why Indians love gold, and the reasons that I've told you in this article highlights why imports of gold has increased manifold. Now, good morning Narsimha, good morning Baba Spings, good morning Bhaskar. Now, sir, did RBI bring back all the golds kept abroad? No. RBI has brought most of the golds which are kept abroad but for many geopolitical as well as economic reasons, it makes sense for us to deposit our gold in different countries so that the RBI will incur less transport cost in case if it wants to dilute the kind of gold holdings it has. Now, let us try to solve our first practice question and understand or analyze whether we have been able to get the article properly or not. Consider the following statements regarding India's gold imports. Now, India is one of the largest importers of gold in the world, with most of its imports coming from Switzerland and UAE. The answer is correct. India is second largest consumer of gold and is unable to meet the needs of its gold from domestic market. That is why it has to import substantial amount of gold, and it does so from many countries, which include Switzerland and United Arab Emirates. Now, demand for gold in India is largely driven by its uses in electronics industry. This is incorrect because I told you gold has a festive value, that people give gold jewelry to their sons and daughters during their wedding. It is used as an asset class as people try to invest their money in gold. So these are the reasons primarily why Indians demand gold, not for electronics industry but for these purposes. Second statement is correct. Incorrect. First was correct. We have to identify correct statement. Therefore, option A here is the right answer. Moving to the next article of the day. This article appeared on very first page of the Indian Express newspaper, and it highlights a tragedy which has struck Assam, particularly related to mining incident. Now, such kind of incidences, they are covered in disaster and disaster management. Therefore, they are a part of GS paper 3 syllabus, and as I told you, it appeared on very front page of the newspaper. Hence, the page number for this article is 1. Now, there was this incident which happened in Assam's Dima Hasao district, that there was this rat hole mine in which there is a fear that at least 9 people are trapped in the rat hole mine, and to rescue these people, a combined teams of Indian Army, deep sea divers from Indian Navy and the state police are assisting and are undertaking operations to rescue these workers from rat hole mining. But because of many reasons such as zero visibility, lack of blueprint of the mine and water from unknown sources are the reasons why such rescue work is taking too much time. Now, the article is important from the perspective that it highlights rat hole mining in Assam region. Why there is a prevalence of rat hole mining in northeastern part of the country, we'll try to understand, in addition to understanding what actually is rat hole mining. So, first of all, let us try to understand what is rat hole mining. Now, mining of coal requires different kinds of a work. Traditionally in India, there is a prevalence or preference for open pit mining, which includes excavating a large portion of land to mine the coal deposits which are there underground. Now, this is prevalent in most parts of the country, but in northeastern part of the country, preferably in states such as Meghalaya and Assam, we see that the coal deposits are in form of narrow horizontal coal seams. Now, open pit mining, especially to mine the coals which are located in narrow and horizontal schemes, are not very economically viable. So, what is economically viable to mine these kind of coal deposits is the technique called rat hole mining. Now, this rat hole mining, it involves creating small pits like rat holes where people, which is wide enough just to accommodate a single miner at once, and this kind of a rat hole pit is used to enter and reach the coal seams. And when workers, they reach the coal seams using the rat hole mining, they undertake the mining activities manually by using very basic tools such as pickle axes as well as shoves. Now, this is very different from open cast and underground mining, and it is preferably and primarily done in northeastern states. Understood? Now, technically, there are two main types through which rat hole mining is done. First is called side cutting method, which is mainly done in minings done on hill slopes, where the workers, they carve out a narrow rat-like hole to reach the coal seams, which is located on hill slopes. Now, another method is called box cut mining, and in box cut mining, what happens is a box-like pit is dug, and from this pit, we utilize a vertical excavation of ground, as this vertical excavation enables the miner to reach the levels of coal seam, and when they reach the coal seams, they dug a horizontal pit to move around these coal seams. And this is what a box cutting method is all about, that you create a rectangular opening, and from that rectangular opening a vertical pit is dug into the ground, which enables the miner to reach the coal seam, and when they reach the coal seam, they dug the tunnels horizontally. So these are the two kinds of mining process which is done using particularly the rat hole mining. Now, there are many concerns associated with rat hole mining. First is safety related concerns. As you understand, these mining activities using rat hole mining are primarily unregulated in nature, which means the inspectors of rat hole mining and safety inspectors, they are not undertaking their audits, and that is why these mines, they lack adequate safety measures which enable safety of miners, such as proper ventilation, structured support, or even the safety gears are not provided to workers. Also, this kind of mining also leads to environmental challenges. Particularly, it can lead to land degradation, deforestation, and even pollution in the water bodies nearby. Now, despite various attempts by authorities, primarily the NGT, it banned the practice of rat hole mining in Meghalaya. But despite such banning by authorities, this kind of mining is very much prevalent in the states of Northeast. Why I told you? Because it makes economic sense for them, because you cannot undertake open cast mining and other mining methods to mine horizontal seams. Only economically viable process is the rat hole mining. And there is also no viable alternative livelihood available to the rat hole miners. So these are the two reasons why, despite banning by the authorities, such practices are still prevalent in the northeastern part of the country. Understood? Now let us move to the third article of the day. This article appeared on page 8 of the Indian Express newspaper, and it highlights that the center has now decided to link farmers' ID with that of PM-Kisan scheme. Now, the context of this article is that I told you, for any new enrollments made under the PM-Kisan scheme, the farmers need to have their farmers ID, which has become mandatory now. Now, this move is quite significant, first of all, because monthly, this PM-Kisan schemes sees about 2 lakh new application every month, and to make sure that the farmers who are applying for this scheme actually own an land, we need farmers ID, because farmers ID, as you can understand, is linked with many data, which includes whether the farmer owns a piece of land in India or not. So, from this article's perspective, two information is important: what is farmers ID and what is PM-Kisan scheme. So, let us try to understand these two data and schemes, particularly important from our prelims perspective. Now, schemes and related schemes from the agricultural sector, such as PM Fasal Bima scheme, PM Kisan scheme, etc., these have been asked in the prelims examination before, and that is why, because such a move is a huge development in India's agricultural sector, you can expect a question either from Farmers ID or PM Kisan in today's newspaper, also in the prelims of this year. So, let us try to understand first of all what is Farmers ID. Now, alternatively, it is also known as Kisan Pehchan Patra. It is actually an Aadhaar linked unique identity cards which is issued to farmers in the country, and these are actually issued and maintained by state governments and union territories administrations. Now, this Farmers ID, it is actually linked to various farmer related databases, such as whether the farmers own a piece of land, that can be determined by land records of the region, whether they own kind of livestock or not, what kind of crops they sow, and what are the benefits that they are availing from other government schemes. So, these kind of data, when they are linked with Farmers ID, this will provide government with the entire set of welfares which are accessed by farmers. Also, this is a part of Agri-Stack initiative by the government, as government wants to digitalize India's agricultural sector, and for that it is creating Agri-Stack. Now there are three components. First is Farmers Registry, which includes Farmers ID. Another one is Crop Sown Registry, which highlights the data, what kind of crops are sown in the country. And the third part is the data related to land and its maps, that what kind of lands and maps are there and what kind of lands include the agricultural land. So these three datas primarily are collected under the Agri-Stack scheme, and Farmers Registry, which includes Farmer ID, is one of the stack or the components of Agri-Stack. Now this was for Farmers ID. Let us try to now understand what is PM-Kisan scheme. It is a central sector scheme, which means 100% of the funding for this scheme is made solely by the Government of India or the central government. And under this scheme, income support of 6,000 rupees per annum in form of 3 different installments of 2,000 rupees each are provided to all landholding farmer families in India. Now, does it include all landholding farmers family? The answer is yes, but there are some exclusions which are made, primarily farmer families who pay income tax or who are actually government employees or professionals like doctors, architects, etc. They are excluded from the purview of this scheme. So it is extended to all farmer families except these kind of families. Understood? Now, generally the purpose of providing any government scheme, it is extended to a household, but this is different. It is provided to a family which includes husband, wife and minor children, and this is what the definition of beneficiary in this scheme is. Now, the state government, these are responsible for identification of what kind of farmers are eligible for this scheme and also providing them the support as per the scheme guidelines. And the money for this scheme, it will be provided directly into the bank accounts of beneficiaries by the central government. Understood? So this is what PM-Kisan scheme is all about. Now let us try to solve another practice question with reference to Farmer ID. Consider the following statement. It is an Aadhaar linked unique digital identity created and maintained by Union government. Now, is it Union government? The answer is incorrect. It is actually state government and not Union government which creates and maintains these farmer IDs. Now, the government aims to create digital identities for as many as 11 crore farmers by the financial year 2026. This is a straightaway data. It is a correct statement as government wants to have 11 crore farmers with farmers ID by the end of third financial year when the scheme was implemented, that is 2026 and 2027. Understood? So, as only second statement was correct, first was incorrect, we have to identify correct statement. Option B is the right answer to this question. Now, as usual, like daily I tell you, please make sure to register yourself on the course provided in the link. As by registering this course, you will be able to watch these videos on our website itself, and the benefits of watching our videos on our website is that you will be provided PPTs and class notes there itself. You will be having an option to download these videos which you will be able to watch even without an internet connection, and you can practice your analysis of that day's newspaper by interactive MCQs which are provided on the website itself. And this is available only at a very meager cost of 1 rupees. So please make sure to register yourself using this link. Understood? Now let us move to another article. This one appeared on 2 pages in the Indian Express, that is the page 10, which is a part of editorial section, and on the business page, that is page 17. And the article, it states that the company Meta, which is a parent company of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp, it has decided to move away from the fact-checking unit or fact-checking schemes. Rather, it is moving to a more community and decentralized based of fact check. So we'll try to understand what kind of risks are associated with a community based fact checking in the scope of our today's discussion. Yes, Bhaskar. Yes, Siddharam. The answer was B. Good morning, Vignesh. Now, as I was saying, the context of this article is that recently Meta, it announced a series of changes with which it moderates the content on its social media websites. earlier it used to form a independent fact check panels, and these panels were responsible for identifying whether a content posted on their websites are actually misinformation or not. However, it is moving to a more decentralized based community nodes, which a similar system is also present on the microblogging website called X, which was formerly known as Twitter. Now, this Meta's decision to pull the plug on independent fact-checking program has drawn a long, sharp criticism across various quarters in the US, primarily because it has ignited a broader debate, because what is the most effective way of preventing the misinformation which are prevalent on social media these days. So this has ignited a kind of a debate, and people are debating whether the fact checking based done by the independent fact checkers were better, or whether community notes is actually better. So let us try to understand what was independent fact checks which was done earlier, and what is this community notes which will be done now onwards. Now first, let us try to understand the background of this issue. Now 9 years ago, particularly in the region of 2015 to 16, US was witnessing a presidential election. Now in this presidential election, ultimately President Trump won as against Hillary Clinton. However, there were various allegations that misinformation, particularly which was originated from Russia, was used widely in US's presidential election, and this forced many social media companies, including Meta, to implement a kind of fact check system which will fact check whether information posted on the microblogging and social media networks are actually true or a fake news. Now, using this, Meta, it enlisted the services of independent fact checkers who were certified by an organization called International Fact Checking Network. Now, the independent fact checkers who were certified by this organization, they independently or on their own verified the data which were present on Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. by utilizing their original reportage or conducting the interviews of primary sources, or by even referring to public data and conducting its analysis. Now, by doing so, they were able to identify whether the information was misinformation, and whenever they flagged any kind of misinformation, the Meta, it made sure that such content was rated as false on the website, and it would also be less visible to users. So this was the way with which Meta identified and flagged the misinformation, and also prevented the transmission of this kind of misinformation. Now, it will also attach a warning label with such kind of misinformation by providing the original content and also the article which is published by the fact checker. So this was the method through which Facebook tried to moderate the amount of misinformation on its website. But now Facebook is saying that even these independent fact checkers, they are subject to their own biases and perspective, and their biases and perspective was so high that they determine what kind of data will be fact checked and how the fact check process will go through. So according to Facebook or Meta, these independent fact checkers are also biased and prejudiced, so as to eliminate the amount of biases and perspectives that actually may occur in the fact checking process. The Facebook now is moving away to a more community notes. Now, what is community notes? Now, this is a crowd-based fact checking model which enlists users of the very platform to flag whether the information posted on the platform is true or not. For example, it is prevalent on Twitter that whenever a tweet is posted on Twitter or X, you'll see a community notes like this would appear, and it will say that such an information is true or false, and it will also highlight the source from which the users are identifying whether the information is right or not. Now, this community note, it shows up below a post only if enough contributors have said that such an information is helpful for their analysis or not. And also, this method will become better eventually as more users will participate, which will increase the acceptance of such community notes. Now, this is the idea which is prevalent currently on the website X, and this will be implemented in one way or the other even by the Meta site. Now, There are many safeguards currently added so that people are not able to misuse this provision of community notes. First of all, only users who have an old account and they have verified their account using a phone number and have zero violations of the guidelines posted on the websites, only these people can participate in the process of issuing a community notes. Now, initially, the contributors, they will only be allowed to rate the community notes as whether they are helpful or not. But over time, whenever they have a credibility, they will be allowed even to write and attach their own community notes. Now, this is how the safeguards are added. Also, there are many challenges in such kind of fact-checking based units, primarily because these kind of community notes are more vulnerable to coordinated manipulation. Now, what if there is a group of individuals who want to suppress the kind of correct information? So, they will be in groups engage in mass voting whether to prove any information as helpful or not. So, will not even know whether the information in community notes is correct or not. Also, these can be used as a spam, or even low quality notes can be promoted by these groups by their coordinated manipulation, and hence you cannot say for sure the amount of information provided in the community notes is correct or not. Also, to prevent people from participating in community notes process, many groups can even identify and target the users if they are posting many community notes or not, and they can even increases hurdles for people from participating in community notes or not. So, these are the kind of challenges which people may face related to the community notes. Now, let us move to the next article. This one appeared again on the op-ed section of the Indian Express, particularly on page 11. This article highlights the debate of the ongoing debate regarding to legalization of the minimum support price regime or not. But this article highlights another aspect, that rather than procuring the crops on legally sanctified MSPs, the government rather should provide price deficiency payment support to farmers, which means if the MSP of a crop by the government has said to be 100 rupees per kg, but in case the market rate of that crop is 75 rupees per kg, in that process government need not procure the crops at 100 rupees. Rather, what the government can do, that if farmer wants to sell it to their market for 75 rupees, government can compensate the farmers with the rest amount or the deficient amount of rupees 25. So, theoretically, farmer will get 75 rupees from the market and they will be compensated by 25 rupees from the government. Thereby, the farmers will be theoretically selling their crops for an MSP price. So, this is what the price deficiency payment system is all about. Now, in this article, there are many arguments. First of all, Mr. Harish Damodaran says in advocacy of price deficiency payment system, whereas Mr. Ashok Gulati highlights arguments which opposes implementation of price deficiency payment system. Now, our main intention from this article is to gather the relevant information from our exams perspective. So, let us try to understand what are the benefits and challenges of price deficiency payment system. Now, the Harish Damodaran, whose article is published on the left side of the argument, has highlighted many benefits for price deficiency payment system. First is that it will spur formalization in the transactions occurring in agricultural markets. For example, currently farmers are selling their produce and they are getting cash in return for their produces, which is an informal process. But now, whenever farmers will have to seek benefits from the government in form of price deficiency, the farmers will be forced to take receipts from the traders, and these receipts will increase the propensity of formalization in agri-produce market. Also, this will increase digitization efforts also, as government has said it needs to make this farmer produce market more digitalized, and as farmers will be required to issued a receipt, then it will also promote digitization efforts in the farmer market. Also, by virtue of government support, the central government can highlight that states need to set up an APMC mandis even outside the geographical location of mandis, so as to ease the process of transaction in agricultural produce, and these can be set up even outside the physical market yards. And then using such schemes, the government can incentivize states to accept and implement such measures. Now, article or the article written by Mr. Ashok Gulati highlights the challenges of implementation of such scheme. First, he said that earlier such schemes was first implemented in states such as Madhya Pradesh through Bhavantar Bhugtan Yojana. However, in practice, what the state in Madhya Pradesh saw that farmers and traders, they were actively colluding in reducing the market prices of the produce. For example, I told you, government highlights the MSP for a crop for about rupees 100 and the prevalent market price is 75. So in that case, the compensation given by the government to farmers will be rupees 25. But what if farmers and traders actively collude to reduce this market price from 75 to rupees 40? So in that case, the support provided by the government to farmers will increase from 25 to rupees 60. Theoretically, the farmers will be compensated for the reduction in market prices, but eventually it is the government who is paying more amount of money. So by this, by active participation of both traders and farmers, if they decide to collude, it will increase government's outgo on price deficiency payment system and will also create pressures on the financial exchequer. So this is the kind of challenge which is highlighted by Mr. Gulati in today's article, that by active collusion, what the farmers and traders collectively may do is that create or reduce the market prices. So theoretically, the market prices are reducing, but the farmers will be compensated by more amount by the government through price deficiency payment system. So this does not create any financial challenge for the farmers, but rather it increases the subsidy outgo by the government, hence creating pressures on the financial exchequer. And this is what today's article was highlighting. Understood? Now, let us move to another article. This one appeared on the page 14 of Indian Express newspaper, which is page related to world news, and it highlights that the Hollywood, particularly the Southern California region, is currently under wildfire. Now, such incidences are important from the perspective of disaster management, which is important from GS perspective, GS3 perspective. That is why I've written GS3 over there. Now, disaster management primarily are not asked in prelims, but such changes in weather phenomena, which is a part of geography syllabus, are frequently asked in the exam. So please make sure to understand how this wildfire occurs in California and what are the reasons which is promoting this wildfire incidences, particularly in the winter months. Now, the context of this article is wildlife incidences. They are occurring in state of California in United States, and it has killed as many as 5 people and forced over 1,30,000 people to leave away their homes and move to safer places. And this wildfire incident has burned down many of their homes, which also includes many celebrity based homes. So that is why such news is in news. Now, while California in general is no stranger to wildfires, but these kind of wildfires usually happen in summer months, and that is why the wildfire which is reported in today's news becomes important, because first of all, it is very big and it is occurring very fast, and also it is occurring in a months of winter, which is traditionally not the season when the wildfire incidences happen. Now, what is the reason for such wildfire incidences? Now, you have to remember last 2 years, that was 2022 and 2023, it was unusually a wet winter for the region of California, and because of that, a lot of trees and shrubs, they came up in the region. Now, this winter, that was 2024, it was exceptionally dry for the fact that Southern California received negligible rainfall, and because of that, the crops or trees which cropped up during the wet seasons of 2022 and 23, it dried up eventually, literally acting as a haystack which was good enough to catch fire. Now, such kind of fire incidences primarily happen due to man-made reasons, particularly with reference to catching fire due to connected wires for electric transmission. However, whenever there is a presence of huge dry trees and shrubs, it creates a opportune condition for spread of wildfire, and this is what has happened in California. Now, you can see the fuel which is acting fire to this kind of incidences is the winds called Santa Ana winds, which flow east to west in the Californian region, and it flows from the upper mountain ranges which is located in the deserts right here. As these warm and fast winds, they blow westwards, and this creates an opportune condition to increase the wildfire and spread the wildfire incidences in the Californian coast located here. Understood? Now, as I told you, this Santa Ana winds is actually adding as a fuel to this wildfire. Why? Because these winds, which are common in California, these seasons are usually very strong in nature, and these strong winds, they made actually flames go and get bigger and spread faster as it increases the incidences of wildfire. Also, between October and January, high pressure builds up in the deserts, which is located on the eastern part of California, and this winds which are flowing from the deserts, they get dry, and as these dry winds reach westwards, they create very unusual system of increasing the wildfire incidences. Now, these winds primarily are drawn from the regions of Sierra Nevada and Santa Ana mountains, which are having deserts, and this is where these winds start to lose their humidity. They increase the temperature, and also as they are flowing from the mountain passes, their speed also increases quite manifoldly. And now these winds, when they start to blow over the Californian region, it already dries up the climate, and whenever there is a fire prevalent in the area, it makes sure to spread that fire to a wider region. Understood? Now, as you can understand, these winds are flowing from the upper reaches, and as their temperature increases when they move down below, it creates the condition when such winds are blowing from the Californian border, it increases the incidences of wildfire. Understood? Now, a recent phenomenon called climate change, it has changed the way our world is behaving, particularly the weather systems. Now, because of the climate change, what we have seen that wildfire season in California, they have actually lengthened, that the more periods of every year we see the wildfire seasons are happening, and the incidences of wildfire have become more intense. Now, as the rise in global temperatures due to climate change has occurred, so as the temperatures of springs and summer, they have actually gone warmer, and because of warmer summers and spring, we have seen that cumulatively it creates conditions for more intense dry seasons, thereby putting the pressure on the moistures of the local vegetation, and because of loss in moisture of the local vegetation, we see they become more vulnerable to such wildfire incidents. Understood? Now, let us move to the last article of the day, and this article, as you can see, appeared on page 6 of the Indian Express newspaper, and this article highlights India Genome Project, which is a project to sequence genome of Indian population as many as 10,000 people, and therefore such developments are important from the perspective of changes in science and technology, because if you look at the syllabus and the questions which appear in mains examination, majorly the questions in science and tech, they occur from the portion of current affairs. So that is why we are going to practice our today's mains answer writing using this very article, and remembering such important provisions and benefits of such schemes are important from your exams perspective, because again, questions in mains, particularly from science and technology, belong to current affairs. Understood? Now, the context of this article is that India Genome Project or Genome India project, which involved genome sequencing for as many as 10,000 Indians, were completed yesterday, and the data of this genome sequencing project was made available to public by India's Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, and he has held that such a significance, it is a milestone in India's biotechnology research. So, from our today's articles and analysis perspective, what is important, that we have to understand what are the provisions and purpose of genome sequencing, what is Genome India project, and how it is a milestone in India's biotechnology sector. Understood? Now, first of all, you have to understand what is genome sequencing is all about. Now, every human cell that are present in humans, they are made up of what? They are made up of deoxyribonucleic acid. Now, these deoxyribonucleic acids, they consist of 4 nucleotide bases, which are adenine, cytosine, guanine and thymine. Now, these adenine, thymine, guanine and cytosine, they are arranged in a very different manner in every individual. So the process of actually understanding their actual sequence is what genome sequencing is all about. So it is a deciphering the complete set of genetic instructions which are encoded in our DNA, and as every human has a different sequence, it will be able to identify whether this DNA sequence belongs to human X or human Y or human Z. Understood? Now, as each organism, I told you, possess a unique genome sequence, therefore genome sequencing is actually vital for understanding the information encoded in a particular DNA or RNA. Now, humans, they only have DNA, but viruses, particularly for example COVID-19 viruses, they included primarily of RNA. So, understanding the genome sequencing of RNA and DNA, it is very essential, first of all, to understand how the virus or human is prevalent, and this can be even be able to helpful for us to understand what kind of mutations are happening in the original virus strain. Understood? Now, let us try to understand what is Genome India project. It is actually was launched by Department of Biotechnology, which comes under Ministry of Science and Technology, and the objective of this entire project was to collect 10,000 genetic samples from people of India and then create a database after genome sequencing has happened to these samples, which will represent India's genome sequences of its diverse population. Understood? So these are the two primarily objectives of genome sequence project. Now, this project, it consists of researchers belonging to as many as 20 national institutions, and it will be led by Center for Brain Research, which is located in the southern city of Bengaluru. Also, the database or the data sets which will be generated after sequencing of these 10,000 genome sequencing will be stored at India Biological Data Center located in city of Faridabad, which is in Haryana. Understood? Now, let us try to understand first of all what the government is getting or what kind of benefits the government is getting from analyzing the genome sequencing of as many as 10,000 people. Now, first of all, understanding the genetic markup of an individual will help the government provide for personalized medicine, as tailored treatment which will respond to kind of genome sequencing a person has can be used, and it will make drugs more precise in nature. And it will also do away with the need for trial and error, which is quite prevalent in medical sciences, because we do not know what kind of drugs and medicines will actually benefit a kind of a patient. Also, this will help us understand what kind of drug responses will occur in a human being, because whenever drugs, they actually complement the genome sequencing, then only the drugs will be beneficial for the patients. Also, it will reduce the amount of money people are spending on the drugs, particularly with the drugs which are not suiting them. Also, it will help government understand and individual understand if they have a prevalence or preference for any early diseases, because genetics, they affect diseases such as cancer or diabetes, and if such markers are present in our genome, through a process of genome sequencing, we'll be able to identify whether a person has more risk towards contracting cancer or diabetes, and they can take precautions accordingly. Also, it will help understand genetic disorders, which is very much important from government's point of view, because it will help diagnose of a patient if they are suffering from any genetic related disease. It will help individuals identify whether they carry a kind of a carrier which is responsible for a kind of disease, or also it will help us undergo gene therapy, because through gene therapy we can make sure not to take medicines and accordingly improve our genetic markup. Further, from public health perspective also, it is very important, because it helps you to understand what kind of diseases or what kind of public health trends are there for our population, which essentially is epidemiology. And it also helps government frame its pandemic response, because from genome sequencing only we will able to identify the mutations made in COVID-19 viruses such as alpha, beta, delta, etc. And from genome sequencing, we were able to identify mutations and how these mutations will affect the host population. So, this helps government frame its response accordingly by understanding the changes in the viruses. Also, it can be very helpful in agriculture and biotechnology because we can make crops more improved by genetic sequencing. By genetic sequencing, we can identify what kind of traits are there in a particular crop which can be enhanced in order to increase its yield, in order to increase its resistance from pests and also from droughts. Further, we can selectively breed animals, as the kind of animals which are more robust in nature, which are more less prone to diseases. These kind of animals can be selectively bred, but we have to first understand their genome marking, and the process of genome sequencing will help us achieve all these 4 goals that I've highlighted. Understood? Now let us try to solve the practice question. Which of the following is or are the applications of genome sequencing? Development of personalized vaccines, I told you, is a correct option. Prediction and occurrences of diseases such as cancer is correct. Determining genetic orders in fetus is possible through genome sequencing. But will it provide full understanding of complex human behavior? It is incorrect, because human behavior is a product of both genetic markup as well as environmental factors. So you can understand genetic markup through genome sequencing, but you will not be able to understand the environmental factor. Hence, 4th statement here is incorrect. First, second and third is correct. Option right here is option C. Now, before winding up our today's session, let us try to understand whether we are able to write this mains answer or not. What is the Genome India project? Discuss the objectives and significance of advancing medical research, healthcare and scientific innovation in India. Now, naturally, as daily, you will divide your answer in through 3 parts: introduction, body as well as conclusion. Now, in introduction, you will highlight what is genome sequencing. Then body you need to identify give information about Genome India project, that it is a project of Department of Biotechnology and it involves assessing the samples of 10,000 individuals, and it will help India create a data set of genome sequencing which is representative of its population. Now, first step, you will identify the objectives of the scheme, and in the second part of the body you will identify the significance of such projects for India. First of all, it will help government or individuals identify the risks of diseases that people may have. It may help the government or the people by providing them with precision medicine. It will help government in public health sector by understanding the genetic markup of the population or how to frame pandemic response, and it will help government or the sector develop various benefits for agriculture as well as biotech sector. Understood? By altering the kind of crops that are prevalent, or by selectively breeding a kind of animals which are less vulnerable to many zoonotic diseases. So these will be the significance of this scheme that you will highlight in the second part of your body. Now, conclusion of this scheme will first of all entail the summary of the 3 things that you have mentioned here. So you will essentially summarize what you have written in the body part of your answer, and this will provide you with the adequate conclusion for the answer. Understood? Now, if you have understand the structure of this answer, please try to write this answer, and if you have any problem, you can submit your answers on the group. I will be happy to evaluate your answers, and the group is ETS Live. Understood? Now, this is the practice question that you can solve today. Please give the correct answers in the comment section, and I will discuss this question before the start of tomorrow's session. Understood? So this was all from my side for today. I will see you again tomorrow at 10 AM sharp. Until then, keep practicing, keep revising, and more importantly, keep writing.